I guess we don't have to introduce Mark, he's been here many times, so I'll let him go through some facts and figures about his background if he wants to.
How is everybody? Everybody good? That was a great program. Wonderful that could be put together and that we could see that. Don, I know how much that meant to you. Your lovely wife put that together for you. And what a great surprise that would be for Christmas. So the legislature's in session. This is my 15th legislative session.
Wow.
And I know, wow. Every year builds on another year, and I think that I know that we have. You know, when I first got elected, I realized that there was one thing that was an absolute truth of the whole thing, and that was is until you got the majority, you were nothing in the House of Representatives. Then when we got the majority, then we realized, well, if we really wanted to affect change, that what we needed was a supermajority, and we got that. Now, can I say that everything that we've wanted, everything that we've asked for, everything that we've aspired to change has occurred? No, I can't do that. But I can tell you that cutting taxes and cutting spending has happened. We've implemented the largest tax cuts in the history of the state, and revenue's still up, by the way. We still have more money in the bank now than we had before, and we're hopeful when it's all said and done, cutting the personal income tax and cutting a lot of the corporate taxes, we're going to send several $100 million back to Mississippians, which is their money in the first place, right? And let them keep it. Now, some people say, well, what about corporate taxes? Why are you cutting corporate taxes? Well, my Baker Law Firm's a corporation. It ain't much of one, but it is, right? It's me and the people that are working in my office. And what I'm trying to do is provide income for my family, a living for my family, and those of my employees. And why Baker Law Firm should pay taxes, I have no idea, because it's all a pass-through. What we're trying to do is put people to work at a fair wage and make sure that that they can provide. And so I don't get crossed up in this. You know, at the end of the day, corporations are just things. LLCs are just things. People are not. And we need to figure out a tax structure that is fair to people. And one of the ways you do that is you create an environment that is conducive to economic growth and prosperity. And one of the ways you do that is you lessen the burden and you make your domestic businesses and through the state level, you make them competitive, and we're doing that. Recently, the federal government followed Mississippi's lead, I like to say, and passed an historic tax bill. I'm hopeful that there are a couple things in there that I'd heard were in there. I've read the bill, but this is one of those bills, if you all have read it, and I have, you can't just read the bill, you got to have a set of U.S. code with you, because they don't do like in Mississippi where it's you see what's going out and what's coming in. And I'm not being critical, I'm just saying it takes some time to read through a bill at the U.S. Congress. All they do is refer back to, you know, they'll refer to code sections and say, well, we're striking paragraph B from 1846-3A. Well, it isn't there, so then you got to go to 1846-3A to see what they're striking to figure out what's going on. But one of the things that I think, and we all have looked at the tax bill, and we all think, you know, I hope you think that it will provide some benefit. But one of the things that I think it does is, for example, a small business, when I buy a copier, I have to depreciate that copier out. And it makes no sense. You know, I spend $5,000 on a copier, and I have to depreciate it out over 20 years. That means that I now have to pay tax on $5,000 less, 1/20th depreciation in year one, for a copier that's going to have no life in 3 or 4 years or whatever. So under the tax bill, you'll be able to immediately expense these items. Well, are you hearing what businesses are doing now in response to this? The bonuses that are being paid and the investment that is being planned that is going to be put into the economy? You better hold on. If you're in business or thinking about getting in business, or you just better hold on. The investment that will begin to occur in our country No giveaways. This is investment under the law. This isn't, we gotta buy you to come to town. This is, just get out of your way. The investment that is going to begin through this tax bill is going to be the likes of which we will have never seen. And it's going to come all the way down to the small business that's going to buy the vehicles. You know, right now you buy a vehicle, it has to be a certain weight truck, it has to be a certain whatever for you to expense it out. You know, those rules are out the window now. Now it's, you expense it, you buy it, you expense it. Huge, huge. We can talk about the personal deductions, we can talk about a lot of the things that they've done about mortgage insurance, mortgage interest deductions and stuff like that. But with the culmination of the federal tax bill and the phase-in for the Mississippi tax bill, our pocketbooks are getting heavier with our cash. And for me, that's the most important thing. Because we know how to, Capitol's calling about a bill, we're on bill deadline, sorry about that. We know, I believe, how to better spend our money, and government, as much as we want to think that we're all great stewards of the people's money, there's a heck of a lot of waste. And I'd rather not have it, to be honest with you. So that's my 2 cents about the tax. People ask about, well, what are you going to do about the gas tax? Roads are in terrible shape. What are you going to do? Well, first, the gas tax that everybody's talking about, they want to raise the gas tax, doesn't have anything to do with the municipal roads and the county roads. They're talking about highway. None of the money that they want to raise through increasing the gas tax is intended to go to anything but state highways and interstates. So if you've got a bad road and, you know, off on Spillway, you know, into the subdivision over in Waterwood, and you're wondering whether this gas tax is going to fix that road, no, it's not going to fix that road. Doesn't have anything to do with it. So what we're trying to do is make sure people understand that when Mr. Sanderson gets on there and tells us that we need to build better roads so his chicken trucks can get up and down the state highways, we need to remind him that if we pass the gas tax, that my wife, my household, has to pay more for the gas, right? Because my wife's vehicle doesn't write off the gas like my vehicle does at the Baker Law Firm, and then I got to pay more for the chicken. So I'm getting hit twice. And so we try to remind him that even so, and still, this is on the highway. This is not on the, this is not on county roads and municipal roads. However, we're going to get to the bottom of all of this. I promise you. I do not believe it's going to culminate in the passage of an increase in gas tax in Mississippi. I don't. MDOT spends a solid $1 billion would be every year. Every year, $1 billion. And I'm not saying it's enough, but I'm not saying I'm convinced it's not enough. How about that? And that's kind of my rule. Until you can prove to me that that's not enough, and just screaming and hollering and crying and moaning about it is not going to cut it for me. I want to see facts and figures. So what have we done? I've always been an advocate that if you're going to put somebody in a position where they've got to perform, MDOT, too many people, spending too much money, not a good enough product. If you're going to put somebody like MDOT in a position where they've got to perform, you've got to give them the tools where they can perform. So what's one of the tools? Last week, the Mississippi House of Representatives passed a bill and removed MDOT out from under the Personnel Board. What does that mean?
A lot.
It means a lot. It means you guys are the engineers at MDOT. And I'm not, this is an example, so I've just picked y'all because y'all are on this side. But you guys are the engineers at MDOT. The first 2 rows, y'all are riding to retirement, right? Y'all just riding along. Those 3 in the back, they're doing all the work. For me to get rid of you 5 is going to cost me more than I can pay those 3 for the next 3 years because you're not at-will employees. And so I got to go through all this rigmarole about how to get rid of a bad employee. True story. When we took the, am I still in focus? I need to get back over here. When we took the Department of Corrections out from under the Personnel Board back when I first took office in 2004 and 5, Chris Epps, I don't know, Chris, you're talking about Chris, but Chris Epps was actually a pretty good director before he got crooked. Chris Epps told us, look, I'm not trying to fire anybody. I got 134 people that are on the payroll who ain't coming to work, who I can't fire. And I've got pending employment situations going on with them down at the personnel board with all these people. Y'all got to help me reorganize this department. We've done it. We did it for him, and for 5 years, he spent year over year less money than the first year that we did it. Never got back to that number for 5 years. Agriculture, we removed the Department of Agriculture out from under the personnel board 1 year. Let them reorganize. We have got to remove the shackles that prevent us from looking at MDOT and saying you need to run like a business when we don't give them the opportunity to act like that when it comes to the operation of the business. So that bill passed the House of Representatives. I hope it passes the Senate. We put no repealers, no sunsets. If I had the choice, every employee of state government would be at will. Now you can say, well, there's political and so-and-so is going to get run off because they don't get along. Well, you know what? First, the Department of Health needs 2,000 people tomorrow, okay? So we're not running anybody off that wants to work. The Department of Corrections needs officers right now, all over the state. So we're not running off people that need to work. That's just a fallacy. We need people that want to show up and want to work. And if they can't, or they won't, we need to give the state agencies the opportunity to say, okay, thank you. It was a good opportunity. Appreciate your attempt. You got to go. And so if we can do that, then the other thing we've got to do, we've got this in the bill as well, is we've got to quit raising sand when we find out that engineer X is getting paid $150,000, $200,000 a year. I don't care. Mark, you don't care. You're a legislator and you don't care how much engineers are getting paid at MDOT? No, I don't care. What I care about is why it took 20 years for 471 to get built. That's what I care about. I don't care if you've got 5 engineers and you really want 2 and you want to pay them $150,000, $200,000 a year to do the work of 5 if the product gets done. Because I don't think we ought to be having to plan to build a highway for the next generation. I get it that we need to be planning for the next generation, but my goodness, every highway we build is going to take 20 to 25 years to get off the ground. Highway 49. Finally let the contract on Highway 49. Do you know how long they've been planning to build and widen Highway 49? Now, I'm not being critical of MDOT per se, I'm being critical of the process, okay? So for me, the process has to change, and we're beginning to do that. We're beginning to say we're going to make you act like a business, but at the same time, we're accountable to make sure you can act like a business. Does that make sense? So that's a key issue in the legislature this session. I really believe that once we got through right-sizing some budgets, and once we got through eliminating some phantom pins. Pins are employment positions, by the way. I learned that when I first got down to the legislature. Everybody kept talking about pins and pins and pins. Pins is just an acronym for a job. And so whenever you hear in the news that we either have pins or eliminating pins, that's what we're doing. And so, but agencies kind of keep these phantom pins. Ross, you know. They keep these phantom pins tucked over here. Nobody's in those jobs. But if you cut them, right, if you say, okay, well, we're not going to budget for positions that you don't have people in, you come back and we'll figure that, oh, you're getting ready to fire 500 people. It's like, well, there's not 500 people. These are empty positions. So be very careful when you hear the news about layoffs, pins, and all this other stuff. Forestry Commission last session, oh my gosh, the world was going to end with the Forestry Commission because we had the temerity to reorganize their budget, reduce their budget, and eliminate pins. Nobody who wanted a job lost a job. Had a lot of people that were getting ready to retire, there go those pins. Had a lot of people where those pins weren't filled, there go those pins. Oh, by the way, the Forestry Commission is very important, very important. But it's another example where missions change, okay? before it was teaching people how to plant trees, and it was to put out fires, right? And you had these big towers throughout. When you drive by Mississippi, you'd see a big tower and somebody'd be up in that tower. They don't do that anymore. Why? Because every community from Ocean Springs to Corinth and everywhere in between has a volunteer fire department. Ever thought about that? In Rankin County alone, we have over 27 separate volunteer fire departments. And they're all well equipped, and we have tax dollars that go to, you could go to Langford Volunteer Fire Department today and drive by, and it doesn't look, it looks better now than it did, by the way, but it's not what you would think. You go in there, there's $2 million worth of equipment in that building. $2 million. Reservoir Fire Department. Anyway, what I'm saying is missions change, and you have to acknowledge that in government, and we have to do something about it. And we don't need people in crow's nests looking for fires anymore, because we got radios, and we got telephones, and we got social media, and we got the internet, and we got cars and trucks, and we got ways to deal with this. And so the world's changing, and we need to change too. And so big focus this year is going to be on reorganizing MDOT, I hope. Big focus is going to be on removing employees out from under the personnel board, and big focus on that. Big focus is going to be on getting the budget, continuing to whittle on the budget. This year, more money this year than we had last year. We just do. I'm for sending it back. Last session, the chairman after chairman get up and say, this is one of the worst economies we've ever had. No, it isn't. It's not. We got more money in the bank now than we did last year, and last year we had more money in the bank than we did before. And that's with the most historic tax cuts we've ever implemented in the state of Mississippi. My thing is that we have less extra money, and I'm okay with that, because it went back to y'all. And so I implored the speaker, I said, Philip, please tell the chairman of appropriations that because of the pay raise that we gave the taxpayers, we're spending less money. Let's not couch it in terms of our economy's in bad shape. Let's couch it in terms of, which is the reality, which is we have more money, we've given more money back, we're doing okay. Look, if you think we're ever going to fund the education system in the state of Mississippi to the top 10, it's not going to happen. It's a moving target. It's never going to work out for us. But if you think that we don't provide a quality education through the money that we spend, and there's not a lot of waste there, you're wrong. If you think that we're never going to be, you know, and people say, well, Mississippi's always in the bottom. No, we're not. We're not. And when you hear somebody say that, you need to say, hold up, what are you talking about? And stop them and say, wait a minute, maybe we choose to spend less money when it comes to these things, because the school districts that receive the most state money are the least prepared, worst performing school districts there are. It's fact. So it's not about money. As you may know, we have a new education chair, and so a lot of things are changing in the House. We will bring out the Ed bill this year. What is that? That's a rewrite of the MAEP formula, not a formula. A formula is the same thing where me and Rollins could take the same number, plug it in using the formula, and come up with the same response, right? That's a formula. Use it for this, use it for that, it's a formula. MAEP is the furthest thing from that in the world, because it carries so many subjective elements to it. It took us too long, in my opinion, but we had to find the right people to do the right program. And as you might imagine, the whole time we're trying to give EdBill the information that they need, that is necessary to do the rewrite of MAEP, we're being pulled by the school districts where they don't want us to get the information. You know, for 90 days, my eyes are the bluest, my jokes are the funniest, I'm taller than I ever was, I'm a really good-looking guy when we're in session. I mean, guys, I'm telling you, that 91st day, I'm like the you know, the troll that got loose and the whatever. So while we're in session, everybody loves you, everybody tell you what you want to hear, all the agency heads, Mr. Chairman, I hate Mr. Chairman, by the way. Hey, I tell them, don't call me Mr. Chairman, because you're either patronizing me, or you don't know what, you know. I just mark is fine. But for 90 days during the session, oh my gosh, I believe sometimes I may almost walk on water. It's amazing. It's amazing. That 91st day, man, it's like Cinderella and the pumpkin. Bam. Well, the problem is you got to know that, right? To be effective, you've got to know that. You got to know whether somebody's wetting on your leg or it's raining outside, right? And unfortunately, in the legislative realm, sometimes we forget that. So I kind of try to do what Fred Smith said, which is you got to, and Haley used to repeat it, and he says, you know, the main thing is to keep the main thing, right? And so the main thing for me is providing the best, most economical product to the taxpayers of the state of Mississippi. Keep spending down and keep taxes low. And for me, that's just the key, and the rest of it kind of falls in place. So I've talked for about 20 minutes. I could talk for another 20 more, but I know y'all may have some questions. And so let me take 2 or 3 questions, and then we can move on to the program. Buddy.
Thank you for calling me out. I've been in state government about 18 years, give or take. And everything